For my part 3 cultural investigation, I have been blessed to have made the acquaintance of an individual from Saudi Arabia. She is here doing kind of like a study abroad type program with K-State, and we share our ESL assessment class together, which is where I met her. And she was very willing and happy to do this interview with me. And our friendship has grown from this, and she's just a blessing to have in my life right now. I initially thought of using the exact same questions that I did for my own cultural investigation. However, every interview meeting that we set up, we ended up just sharing a lunch and having fellowship and getting to know one another. And so that's what I'm really going to reflect on. So I'm sure that you can guess she is Muslim, whereas I'm Christian. However, that doesn't hold any restraint in our friendship. Having some prior knowledge about certain preferences in the Muslim religion that they follow, I do try my best to make sure that I don't put her in any sort of a compromising situation. So like when we go to lunch or whatever, like we've been to Gordo's down in Aggieville, which, I made sure that I was eating chicken and suggested a meal to her, which she was just completely thrilled with. She absolutely loved it. Chicken chimichangas are an international success, no matter where you go. She thought that was the greatest food she had ever tasted. In our first interview, I asked her just to kind of share whatever she wanted to about herself. And she immediately gave me her family and cultural background, which I found I could relate to in the aspect of how important family is. Her father has 2 wives, has been married 4 different times, and in my own upbringing, my mother was married 4 times, so I could totally relate to that. She has a total of 10 brothers and sisters, 7 with her mother, and the remainder are with the other wife, in which they kind of live together but don't live together. And, I asked her, how does that make you feel? And she's like, there's definite more love, absolute, for the children, as, they have no control over that. But she definitely was like, my mother hates him, but she loves him. It's a beautiful love-hate relationship. And you see that here, in our own society, these crazy relationships that people get themselves into and never get out of. So even though it's slightly a cultural religious twist, it's not, because it happens here too. As far as the family part of it goes, she still lives on the property of her parents. It's a really neat setup. So her mother lives on the first floor of the house that they built. She is building her house on the second story section, which with her own hands. I was like amazed by that. And she's very proud and very independent and happy to do so. And her brother is building his house on the third section. The other wife and children live on kind of around the corner in another house, in the grandmother's house. So family is still very connected, but separate and individualistic. It was really neat to see that. And her commitment to her family is very much like my own in my own upbringing. Whereas you do for the elders, no matter what. I mean, it's a given. They're your elders, and what they need and what they ask is what you do. So her and I very much share in that. A misconception that I found I had regarding the Islamic religion was the power and say that women have in the marriage. My friend has actually been married twice and has divorced both of her husbands. And I asked her, how their culture goes about doing that. And so my understanding of it was only partially correct, that there's still a lot of arrangement dealt in the marriage. So her family had to pay back her husband's family in order to have the divorce go through. And I don't know, I could kind of see she's a very independent person and strong, so strong. So in my own personal life, I've done the exact same thing she did to gain my freedom. Was I gave up everything and walked away from a bad marriage, just like she did. So even though I didn't actually pay the family back, I walked away free and clear, just like she did. In our second attempt to discover our similarities and differences, we reflected on our childhoods, and we both grew up watching the same TV shows, the same cartoons, and it was just, we sing the same cartoon songs. We had admired the same MacGyver, as growing up. He was the cutest, and he was so smart in how he could escape everything. So these little childhood fantasies that I had, so did she, about the exact same person. And that was just really neat. I didn't realize what all was available to her as a child. So to hear that she had almost a very similar childhood to mine was pretty cool. A lot of the original Middle Eastern culture is still also something that she grew up with. Her grandfather lives in a hut-style house, and so she looked it up so she could show me a picture of it, and it's kind of, what we are taught here in America, the mud hut, almost circle frame type house, with one major room in it. But that's not exactly how she grew up, though. Her father was military, and so she grew up on military post housing and went to military schooling. When I asked her about, what school was like for her, just to see if there was a difference, because she has stated before that there's school for boys and then there's school for girls a lot of times in many of the cities and towns. But it wasn't that way for her being on the military installation. Everybody went to the same school. And she was like, school was school. It was kind of boring, teacher taught, they lectured, we wrote, we learned. It was a lot like how I learned, except that they had to learn English starting in around about like third grade. They started to learn a foreign language to them, in which I find most other countries do that. Kind of wish we would. The only real difference between our cultures that I could even find was that when she resides in Saudi Arabia, she wears a full face hijab and is very happy and pleased to do so. A lot because of the respect for her religion and also just a respect for her culture. She did tell me that when she first came to America, her brother was very concerned about her wearing the full face hijab because of the many misconceptions that most Americans have. And he told her, it's making people feel uneasy. We're going to be searched. Just take it off. And she was like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. Please don't make me do this. And of course they got searched. and he felt that it was because of her wearing her face covering. And so he told her, go to the bathroom and take it off. Just do it. And so she did. And she showed me the picture of her first time showing her face in America. And the picture just says it all. She looks just vulnerable and scared and just unsure of what she has just stepped into. And I hate that she felt that way. And I hate that our society forced her to do something that she really wasn't ready to do. So, as I said, she is here with her brother. That is also part of their culture that she still brought with. And she actually takes care of most of the men in the residing area around them that are also from Saudi Arabia. She'll cook large meals and bring meals to everybody. So she still holds true to her culture and taking care of everybody as she feels that she should. However, she has transitioned to allowing her face to be shown. She still wears her head covering, her hijab, but she shows her face, and she is a remarkably beautiful woman. I mean, she is just gorgeous. And I'm glad that she's comfortable enough, especially with me, to show that. So this is my new and beautiful friend, whom through this investigation I have grown very fond of and very close to, and have found how similar we are, even though we come from worlds apart and have conceived differences that were brought up thinking. But she's no different than me.